Hi everybody, this is CR number 7, question number 8 helper video. Hopefully after watching this, it'll help you to answer the question on your CR. So let's get started. First of all, it gives you this equation up here. And remember, this equation up here involves absolute value. And they're saying that that's a false statement. And it says explain what error was made and how to get to the correct answer. Well, the first thing we have to do is solve this equation to see why that statement is false, and that should help us to be able to explain the error that was made and how to get to the correct answer. So the first thing we have to do is anything inside of the absolute value. So we have a -2, ooh, that's sloppy, sorry about that, plus a -6. Now there's two different ways of looking at this. First of all, we can say we have 2 bad guys here because they're negatives, and we have 6 bad guys here. So if we're adding them together, we have a total of 8 bad guys. Some of you might remember if the signs are the same, you find the sum, and the sum of 2 and 6 is 8, and we have more negatives because all we have are negative values here. So that's how we get that -8. Now remember, I have to bring down my absolute value. I bring down the negative sign in front, and I'm just going to bring down that -4 that they're telling me they believe could be the answer. Remember, absolute value means the distance from 0. The distance from 0 is 8 units away. It doesn't matter if it's positive, it doesn't matter if it's negative, it's still 8 units away from 0. So the absolute value of -8 is actually a +8. Now I have this, I'm going to change colors just so you can see a little bit better. I have this negative sign on the outside. That negative sign is just brought down in front of the number that I got for an answer because it's outside of the absolute value symbol. And then I just bring down the equals -4. Well, obviously you're all saying right now, holy moly, -8 does not equal -4. So I'm just going to put a line through this because that is definitely not equal to each other. So now let's go back. So we know the answer should have been a -8. So let's see how they might have gotten the -4. Well, if you look at this positive sign, once again, I'm just going to change colors to highlight some things. If you look at this positive sign, right? Sometimes kids might get a little confused and they might think that this positive sign kind of takes over the negative sign here. But remember, when we're adding a negative, okay, when we're adding a negative, it just means we're adding more negative values. So it's going to become more negative than where it started before if we're adding a -6. So what it looks like they did is they took this -2 and they didn't add more negatives to it. They actually subtracted away those -6 values. Now let's look over here what I mean by that. If I have a -2 minus a -6, remember this double negative would become a positive, right? A double negative becomes a positive. If I said I'm not going to the store, if I'm not going, that means I am going to the store, right? So remember, that's why those would both become positive. Now if I had a -2 here, and I have a +6 here, I would have 6 good guys, 2 bad guys, which means I would have a total of 4 good guys because I have 4 more good guys than bad guys. If I took the absolute value of that and brought that negative down, that would mean the absolute value of a +4 is still 4 units away from 0, so it's +4. But this negative, guess what? It would have made it a -4, which is the answer that they thought they were getting. So what did they do wrong? Well, let's make a sentence. So I'm going to use a text box. And I'm just going to open up my text box here and I'm going to explain it just because it's easier to actually type out than to write out. And I'm going to make that nice and big so you guys can see it. So the mistake that was made, was that the person added a +6 to the -2 instead of adding, oh gee, that's so sloppy, of adding a negative. So they added a positive 6 to the negative 2 instead of adding that negative. And then you can go ahead and say, in order to make this a true statement, the person needed to add 6 more negatives to the negative 2. Sorry about that. Oh my word, I can't even spell. To get a total of 8 negatives. Because negative 2 plus a negative 6 is negative 8. And the absolute value of negative 8 is 8. Bring down that negative sign and it makes it a negative 8. So I think that the explanation is fine, but your work needs to be there to back it as well. Thanks, guys.